Hi, guys.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane. I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts, and I'm here with one of my favorite authors, Kristan Higgins, who has agreed to do this wonderful series of recommending the best women's fiction out there. Not what she writes, because that would be self serving, but what other authors are writing. But also, she might have some news for you all today. Um,
Ah,
so we are recording and you don't have to be writing furiously. I will send out notes with all of the recommendations. If you have recommendations, oh, yes, your hair, Kristen, does look awesome. Thank you, Don.
oh, thanks.
Um,
Yeah.
if
I ran some product through it and I'm thinking like, is it crooked? Is it which side? You're looking at yourself on the computer and you don't know which side to fluff. So I'm just
it's
gonna try not to touch
a good
it.
idea. Yeah, if you have books that you've been reading lately that you've really enjoyed, put them in the chat, and I will include that in the email that goes out to everybody. Apparently, you're doing you're hitting it just right, Kristen, because somebody also loves your eyeglasses.
Wow, I love it here. I'm gonna stay on until 7:30. You can go on, but I'll hang out here.
Oh no,
I
I
also
I
have
am.
Buttercup beside me. Like just before Amina and I were talking, she was whipping around her little squeaky chicken. I was like, I gotta hide that thing if I'm going on.
So, for those of you who do not know Kristen, Buttercup is her dog.
My
I
beautiful,
just
perfect
assume you
puppy.
all know us. Okay. So, like I said, Kristen's going to be making recommendations. I'm going to be showing the covers by sharing my screen. But again, I will be sending out a list afterwards. And we already got a recommendation for a book. So, awesome. Kristen, let's go.
All right. All right. I've read so many good books in the past couple of months, and it was actually kind of hard to pick them. But I guess I'm going to start with An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. What a powerhouse of a novel. It was an Oprah book club, so I'm late to the party, but this story is about three people: Celestial, Roy, and Andre. Celestial and Andre grew up next door to each other. Celestial is married to Roy, and they're three successful professionals in Atlanta. Celestial's an artist on the rise. Roy is an incredibly charming sales rep doing very well. And and Andre actually kind of inadvertently introduces them. And then on a trip home to Louisiana, Celestial and Roy are in a motel room and the door gets kicked in. Hey, it's the police. And he's been wrongfully accused of raping a woman in that same motel complex. And he's found guilty. They've only been married for 18 months and he goes to jail. His sentence is like 12 years. And it's the story of their love. A lot of it is epistolary, so it's the love letters that they write each other to while he's in jail. But it's also about how much are you expected to absorb when you're a newlywed, right? Celestial starts to feel like we were only married for 18 months. And um, this is not the world she's brought up very wealthy and privileged and she's thinking like I have my career launching and I don't want to say yes I am married and my husband's in jail, right?
Mhm.
Because then she'll be known as the woman whose husband is in jail. And so it's this love triangle, but it's really painfully beautifully done. Um, and it's so complex. Celestial and Roy love each other, but they have problems in their marriage. Andre is her BFF from childhood. He understands her in such a different way than Roy does. So I was completely riveted by this book. I actually like stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning, literally, to finish it because I'm like, I can't go to bed without knowing how this resolves. And it was also just really rich in terms of the town in Louisiana where Roy grew up, the section of Atlanta where Celestial and Andre live. Her artwork is so fascinating. And it was just gripping. And Did you read it, Mina? Have you?
I haven't read it. When I saw it on your list, though, I the question that came to me was, why is this such an enduringly popular book? Because it is, from my understanding, from the friends that I have read it, it's a tough read.
It
Especially if you.
is. It is, it's tough, um, it's tough on every front, and yet it's beautiful on every front. Like the theme of family. Roy is raised by his stepfather, who renames him Roy after himself. And he's such a wonderful, wonderful man. But Roy's biological father, whom he calls biologic, um, is also in jail. And he's never met him before, but he meets him then. And it takes some time for him to learn that this is his biological father. Um, it's tough in terms of what does love obligate you to? What are you honor bound to do? And Roy is saying, like, good times and bad, sickness and health. And she's saying, right, but like I have this whole other life. And it's really hard to read about, like when she goes to prison to visit him and she's with these women, going to see their man on the weekend for visiting hours. And it's a long bus ride for her. And meanwhile, her life is really popping out there with her artwork and her own family. Like, they're very proper and wealthy and didn't really approve of Roy to begin with. And now that he's in jail, one thing that is very clear and it's something I really appreciate about the book is that it's never in question that Roy is not the rapist. That he is an innocent man behind bars, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the woman thought she identified him, and so we never have to wonder, did he do that?
Mhm. Right.
But
That's good.
that complexity and the energy behind the book really just made it so compelling.
Mhm.
And I feel I'm so glad that I read it.
Mhm.
I feel like it brought me to these questions that maybe you don't ask of every read, where everything is like clean and easy and simple. So I really loved that complexity and the relatability of everybody's issues.
Mhm. Um,
Highly recommend.
we have a question from Janine who asks, do you have any recommendations for a book club that tries to read books that embrace diversity of people and experiences? Now, I'm not going to ask you to pick particular books, but I know we both have authors that we read that are churning out amazing books.
Yeah. So I certainly would recommend An American Marriage, but an author whom I absolutely adore, who writes the most beautiful lyrical love stories. They're not exactly romances. They're that wonderful line between women's fiction and romance, is Kennedy Ryan.
Mhm.
And I'll be recommending one of her books on our next podcast here. Or are we doing a podcast? Sort of. No, whatever. On our next evening together.
Okay.
So she's a fantastic writer. Sonali Dave is one of my all-time favorite authors, and she also does that. I was just saying to Mina, I'm listening to this book right now, The Storyteller's Death, which, what a great title, first of all. It's by Anne Davila Cardinal, spelled like Cardinal the bird. And it's about a half Puerto Rican, half white girl who goes to Puerto Rico every summer to stay with her mother's family, and the rest of the year she spends in New Jersey. And I'm really loving that. I can't give you a full report on that, but yeah, I think like it's really such a pleasure to read about other cultures, other experiences, just even other parts of the country. Like, I don't live in Texas. I don't really know what a typical Texas life is, but so when I read a book about that, you get that kind of live vicariously experience. And I especially like to read about other cultures, because I grew up in a very white New England town, and I live here still. So what I know is what I know, and I know it really well. So I'd like to broaden my experience and kind of have have fun and learn things, and like can almost taste the different flavors and see the different trees and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So I think that's a really good thing to be looking for in a book club.
Yeah, I actually
Well
just
done.
saw somebody said Naina Kumar who wrote "Say You'll Be Mine," which I just read, and I love like Piper Hughley and Denny S. Bright who went and Vanessa Riley who went from writing like romance into writing historical and women's fiction with, and they're
Yeah.
just such wonderful uh, researchers.
Yes.
For the
Yeah. I so Denny, I'm going to get their titles wrong. I'm an author who's terrible with author names and titles. Um, but Denny S. Bryce has really exploded onto the scene as someone who can write a historical novel from a particular period. And she's incredible. Piper, Dr. Hughley, as I like to call her. She's one of those authors whose other job, well, she just has like a PhD and a master's degree, and she's a college professor. She I've been a fan of hers for a really long time, but she has really exploded too in popularity. She wrote a book that I loved so much, and it's about the dressmaker who made Jacqueline Kennedy's wedding dress.
Mhm.
And it's called A Design of Her Own. And that I did I recommend that on here? I know I reviewed it,
I don't
but
think so.
yeah, that was an incredible book.
Mhm.
And Vanessa Riley is she wrote that book, uh, the Other Princess. It was about Queen Victoria's goddaughter who is
Yes,
Black.
yes.
Oh, that book was amazing. Yeah. Um,
I love it.
yeah. So
Oh,
um,
okay. Well,
if you
I
guys follow me on BookBub, all those reviews are there, and so you can check that out. But I, uh, yeah, I do like Mina and I were saying before. We both love to read out of our own cultural experience because we're bored with ourselves at this point in our lives. My next book is Anne of Another Island by Virginia Cantra. And that doesn't come out until January, but I want you to pre-order it now so you don't forget. It's um it's Anne of Green Gables, a modern retelling. And Virginia Cantra has been doing this recently. She did Meg and Joe, Beth and Amy. She did Dorothy Gale from Wizard of Oz. And she's taking these beloved, iconic books that we all adored when we were young women, young girls, teenagers. These are the books that I fell into and saw myself in as an 11-year-old. And at first I was like, "Ooh, I don't know, VK, like you're playing with gold here and fire." And I was an instant fan. And so she gives us the characters that we love, and she puts them in contemporary times. So this book is Anne Gallagher, 25-year-old teacher on Mackinac Island. Is that how you
Mac.
say that? Mackinac. Sorry to any Michiganders that I just insulted. um, Her dad has just died, so she's back for the summer. She's kind of skating with her job as a teacher. And she's got the perfect boyfriend. He's a pediatric oncologist, which makes it so difficult to ever complain, like, oh,
Mm.
we don't spend enough time together because I'm healing children with cancer, and she goes back to the island, and there's her father's helper turned all grown up now business owner, Joe, or Gilbert, I mean, Joe. And he once called her the pest. One of the things I loved about this job was, I mean, about this job, about this book was Virginia never does anything trite. And so the pediatric oncologist boyfriend is a really good guy. And you really see why Anne is with him. He's not just some placeholder, and he's not a cardboard cutout. I really liked his character. And I really understood her frustration at always having to take second fiddle to his career. But I also understood him and thinking like, well, I have a really big career and you just started teaching, you can do that anywhere, right, honey? Um, but in this book, Anne confronts having perhaps ADHD, which was something really interesting about Anne of Green Gables when you think about it. Um, Now you think, oh yeah, that works. That works for me. And does she want to change that? Or is the way she thinks and does things, is that the essence of who she is? So I really, really loved that. And it's so warm, it's so funny, and it's just a real pleasure. It gave me a great book hangover. I finished it yesterday and wrote to Virginia. I'm like, I loved it so much, Virginia. So that one was really delightful. And
Um, I wanted to ask you about retellings, because there's so many. I mean, we talked about Sonali Daves a long time ago. We talked about the Shakespeare ones. I just read one by somebody who wrote a book about Romeo and Juliet. I mean, like, there's just so many retelling.
right.
So, and you feel like this one was it didn't ruin
Oh,
the story for you?
I mean, it really was pitch perfect. Like we've all done, any romance writer, we've all done a nod to Pride and Prejudice, or maybe Wuthering Heights or something like that, where we have a Darcy-esque character or Colonel Brandon. Um, you know, 10 Things I Hate About You with Julia Stiles and Heath Ledger is As You Like It.
No, the Kate one. Is that Kate? The
Look at the
Kate?
librarian on a Shakespeare.
Kiss Me Kate?
Um,
No, is that Kiss Me Kate?
that's also
Turning of the Screw, Taming of the Shrew,
Taming of the Shrew.
Turning of the
Thank you,
Screw.
Nancy.
Saying
Thank
Nancy.
you. So yeah, but with what Virginia does is a little bit different. She's a little more true to the characters. It's not just the idea. It's not just the idea of like the snooty boss who's the Mr. Darcy character and the sort of embarrassing heroine who's Lizzie Bennet. She really keeps close to the story. So there's a clear Diana, there's a clear um, uncle and aunt, there's a clear Gilbert, and I appreciate that. I think it's a genius of hers to be able to keep the story very similar, but also make it completely fresh. So I think she does a really good job. Yeah,
That's why I
really.
love it. Julie has a quick. I don't know if we're going to get through all 6 of your books, Kristen. We're just going
Yeah.
to have to like zip through. But Julie has a quick question. If you can recommend any books like yours or Abby Jimenez's, she loves all of yours. She loves Xe Sands, and she wants something rom-com escapism. I love
Yes. Okay.
audiobooks, so
Catherine Center, one of my favorite authors. And I think that we have a lot in common with tone and humor and weaving heavy issues into romance, and presenting them in a way that makes you think, but also doesn't drag you down too much. Um, Catherine Center, Abby's great. Emily Henry, right?
mhm.
Everybody loves Emily, and she does a really satisfying rom-com. Um, let's see. I'm just looking at my other book racks here.
I think last time you recommended The Wedding People. We had a little discussion about it, but I think
I
that
love
one.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the audio. I've
Yeah,
heard the audio of that is really,
yeah.
really good too. So
Someone's giving Annabella Monaghan a shout out. Absolutely love
yeah,
her.
yeah.
Um, yes. So I just finished another book that might fall into that category of like family and romance and stuff, and that's The Family Tree by Susan Wiggs.
Mm-hmm.
And this story has three things that I love. I love that are irresistible. It's set in New England. The main character is a foodie, and there's a coma. I love comas.
Okay.
It's a running joke in my family of like, all I need is just like a week-long coma and then I'll be fine. But this is a story of Annie Rush, who's a successful television show writer and producer of this food show that's done very well. She landed a job like the week she graduated from NYU, and everything is going great, and she's married and she lives in a gorgeous house in LA, and then she's injured on the set when some scaffolding collapses, and then she wakes up. And I think Susan did a really good job at the lack of clarity that you have when you first wake up from, being out of it. She has to learn to talk again and walk again and eat again. And there's certain memories that she can't quite access. And the neurologist's idea is like, you should maybe come to those on your own. For example, is she married? She doesn't quite remember that. And her brain kind of bounces away from that. Is she divorced? She remembers her first love, who's there in Vermont again. And, so here she is. She's gone from this LA producer, writer, to living at home with her mom and wondering what's next for her and just like how to get through each day. But she's such a brilliant writer, and the book is just so full of believability and intelligence, and it interweaves the past and the present, which is another thing that I love and that I also do. So we go back to Annie when she's 17 and falling in love with Fletcher, and then we flash forward to her present day, and then we go back to her marriage and that kind of thing. So it's a pretty hefty tome of a book, but I really, really enjoyed it. And the setting is so wonderful. They're on a maple tree farm in Vermont. So it's about as pretty gets.
Can't go wrong. It sounded to me like Sleep While You Were Sleeping, that Sandra Bullock movie from the 80s.
Yeah. That exact phrase is referenced a few times. So I'm thinking Susan has given us all a little wink and a nod.
First child of the 80s, children of the 80s.
That's one of my favorite Christmas movies. I love that movie.
That's a good one. Go ahead.
I would just say nothing is simplistic in this book, and everything is really relatable. And so I really liked that about that book too.
As you would expect from Susan Wiggs.
Yes.
I really want to hear about this next book, because you would tell me this amazing story about how you contacted her. And she was like fangirling you. Is that right?
Yes. So this is a historical novel called All the Things We Cannot Say by Kelly Rimmer. And this is just an amazing book. It's one of the best books I've ever read. And I sobbed, and I was scared, and I was joyful and crying with happiness through this book. But this is the story of Alice. She's the mother of an autistic child who's nonverbal, and also a gifted child who has all these, French lessons and computer classes. And her favorite person in the world is her grandmother. Her grandmother has a stroke, and she is not able to speak, but using her son's program for communication, she tells Alice to go to Poland and find Tomas. And Tomas is her grandfather who died the year before. So she's like, she doesn't want to say like, oh, don't you remember Grandpa died, but she's so busy. She's so stressed. The scenes of her son's meltdown in the grocery store was so epic and so relatable and so difficult. And now she's supposed to leave her life and go to Poland. This other part of the story is her grandmother in Poland during World War II. And it's so fantastic. And it's a beautiful love story. It's terrifying. Her parents are these poor farmers, and she has two brothers. And, you got to do what the Nazis said or they shoot you on the spot. So it was just one of the most beautiful love stories I've ever read. And the bond between Alice and her grandmother just really got me in the heart too, because I was so close to mine. So anyway, I reached out to Kelly on Instagram, and I was just like, hi, Kelly, I just finished All the Things We Cannot Say, and I loved The German Wife, and this book that you wrote, and that book that you wrote. And I'm just like, I'm your biggest fan. I was going full Annie Wilkes from Misery on her. I'm your number one fan. And I got this automatic message response, like, I'm on deadline, so I won't be responding. And then like 12 hours later, she's like, oh my God, Kristan Higgins wrote to me. Oh my God, Kelly wrote back to me. And so it's very nice when when an author you love also loves your stuff too. So that was really really lovely. But that was just an amazing book, and
I'm doing something funky.
okay,
Sorry.
you will be very, very glad that you read that book. So I can't recommend that enough. It's just utterly gorgeous, and also a great book club book. There's so much to discuss in there.
I love when authors like fangirl each other. Like, you're just each other's biggest. It makes me feel good that I'm not the only one out there doing that.
Oh my God, no, we're the like worst of all. Yeah, I used to love Book Expo America, which was held at the Javits Center in New York, and you could go there and you could see any author in the world, from like um, Mindy Kaling to Jonathan Tropper to Julianne Moore, Dr. Ruth, Charles Fraser, who wrote Cold Mountain. And you just walking by like, oh, hey, Mindy, I almost got arrested that day, but because I didn't know there was like a line of 7,000 people waiting to Mindy. I just came around the corner. I'm like, oh, Mindy, oh my gosh, you're so pretty. You're even prettier in person. Wow. And she's like, thank you so much. And then her security guards are like, yeah, you need to leave, ma'am. And I'm like, why? We're having a conversation here.
Having a
But
moment.
I just, I loved that chance to fangirl in person, and not just with the celebrity authors, but like with Charles Fraser, who wrote a Pulitzer Prize winning novel, or Jonathan Tropper, who wrote a show on Apple right now called Friends and Neighbors, which is so good. And just to be able to like be a normal person, say, I love your books. Love your books.
So if it's okay, Kristan, I'm going to send the other two books to everybody. But I think they are all waiting to hear what your news is.
Yeah, so my news is that I have switched publishers, and I can finally tell people that my next book will be out in September of next year. I'm sorry that you have to go a year without one of my books, but it's called The Me I Used to Be. And it's the story of four estranged friends. They were best friends in high school. And then there was a car accident and somebody died, and they have not seen each other since. But one of the women is suffering from early onset dementia, and she wants to see her friends again. And it's it's one of those books that came to me of what if you were in this situation and you just wanted to be your old self again. So it's sad, it's funny, it's got a bunch of narrators, all you hear from all four women, and it's also set on a farm in Vermont. So I didn't know that when I read Susan's book. So I'm very excited about that. That'll be with Lake Union, which is an Amazon publishing imprint, and I'm really happy. Really, really happy. The book was out on submission, and it went to auction, and that was all very exciting and stuff. But yeah, I can't wait for you guys to read that. And of course, I'll be talking about it a lot in the future. So.
I will be waiting for it. Will they be putting it on NetGalley? Because that's I like to be ahead of the game.
I'm sure I can get you an early copy, Nina.
It's good to have friends.
Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. It's such a pleasure, and really lovely that you spend your time with us.
Yeah, and we got through 4 books and a lot of recommendations from the audience, as well as some really good questions. So I will send out that list and the recording, and I really, Kristan, I'll see you again in 3 months.
Yeah. Unless we have dinner first.
Yeah, okay, exactly. Yeah, but that was a secret, so we don't, make anybody feel bad. But
okay. Never mind.
Okay,
have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Oops, wait a minute. How do I end this thing?